Hi and welcome to this Facebook Live discussion on the rather sensational encounter killing of 8 SIMI members, alleged SIMI members in Madhya Pradesh yesterday. The encounter which followed a jailbreak from Bhopal prison, a highly guarded and a highly fortified ISO certified Indian jail, has become the center of controversy because of the emergence of videos of uncertain provenance which punch large holes in the police version of what happened. According to the police, these 8 men escaped during the night after killing a guard, a police constable Yadav, in the prison. At that point, they essentially made a rendezvous with accomplices who provided them with clothes and other possessions, and also country-made pistols or kattas. This is what the police say. And then these 8 men essentially went on the lam, only to be spotted by villagers and the police around 8 or 9 in the morning. And in the encounter which followed, in which the police claimed they were first fired upon, these 8 men were all killed. Now, the video footage which has emerged during the day yesterday, as I said, punctures pretty big holes in the police version of events on 2 grounds essentially, or in 2 main ways. First, you see clear footage of the police being in touch with their control room, and in the distance you can see 5 of the 8 SIMI escapees, and the police is asking its control room, we see them, they want to talk, what should we do? Which does not quite square with the manner in which the police claims the incident of the encounter unfolded. And of course, the second set of videos, rather more disturbing, shows the police firing bullets into the already lifeless bodies of the 8 escapees. So what do we know at this stage? What do we still need to find out? Can anything definitive be said about the encounter? It's these sorts of questions that we would like to engage our readers with. We had asked you to send in questions or comments via Twitter or Facebook or by email, and you can respond to this discussion by posting your questions in the comment timeline on the Wire's Facebook page. But we have 3 or 4 questions that came in by email to get us going, and I'll take them one by one. So Namrata Kumar asks, the latest video circulating on Facebook shows the policemen swearing and even shooting at dead bodies, and it looks like the intent was more revenge for the killing of a fellow policeman than to capture and return them to prison. What do you have to say about that? Well, this video is of uncertain provenance, so let me get that caveat out of the way. We don't know much about its authenticity, but the fact that the police in their press conference yesterday did not really try to claim that the video was fake or that the events being shown were somehow distorted or morphed, as people sometimes do claim in these such situations, suggests that there's a reasonably good chance that the video that we have been seeing is not a fabricated one. So let's take it at face value. What it shows is the police essentially firing bullets into lifeless bodies. We don't know whether, what we don't see are the circumstances under which these 8 men lost their lives. It would be interesting if there is video footage of what happens immediately prior to the gory scene we see of the policemen pumping bullets into their lifeless bodies. The cops claim that there was an encounter. Is there some video recording of this, or perhaps not? Certainly it seems as if you are firing repeatedly into a body that's already lifeless, revenge would be clearly a large part of your motivation, because this kind of senseless act is essentially driven by your desire to avenge the death of the one policeman who was killed when these 8 people were escaping. But we don't know enough, quite frankly. What we can say is that prima facie, based on the fact that the firing was taking place on dead bodies, that the police version of how these men came to die really needs to be dressed up a bit more, and that we don't have enough evidence to accept the police version of events, and it underlines the fact that you have to have an impartial inquiry. Rakesh Gupta asks, do you really believe the police will be stupid enough to video record a fake encounter? Rakesh, this is a great question, and one that really goes to the heart of the policing methods in this country. We've been discussing this in the office as well, about the way in which the police operates. The fact is that there is pretty low degree of professionalism when it comes to investigations, when it comes to the conduct of operations. Quite frankly, nothing surprises me. But if you look at the two videos, you see essentially the video recording of policemen being in touch with their control room. And the second video is of policemen firing into dead bodies. What we don't see is the police firing into unarmed and firing on unarmed men who are already in custody. Right? The classic fake encounter is that you are shooting people who are already in your custody because you would rather not, deal with the, you don't want to charge them, you don't want to try them, you want to just get rid of them. Right? That's the classic fake encounter, and it is very clear that we do not have a video recording of the moment of death. What you do have is a video recording post-mortem, and in fact, in that video recording, I thought I heard at least one policeman question the videographer that why are you taking a video of this? So I would say that, Rakesh, if you say, is the police really stupid enough to video record a fake encounter? Well, they didn't really video record the fake encounter. They video recorded moments prior to and after, perhaps with a view to producing material that would make the encounter seem authentic. I don't know. But we don't have a video recording of the actual fake encounter. Ishan Goenka asks, 8 people break out of prison after killing a constable and are found together in a forest. Does this not look suspicious? Yes, it does. In the sense that, common sense would tell us, and all of us have watched our fair share of Hollywood movies, and I must confess to being a fan of Prison Break. So, all of you out there have seen, TV dramas or movies about people breaking out of prison. You have large. The fact is that internationally, what do the statistics tell us? Right, that people who break out of prison tend to be captured within the first 24 hours, and they tend to be captured within a 2 or 3 mile radius of the prison itself. If you can put maximum distance between yourself and the prison, and if you can disperse if you're in a crowd, chances of survival are greater. But the fact is that there can be many reasons why, if this was a genuine escape, why the 8 SIMI men would have preferred to stick together. Maybe one of them had a man on the outside who was promising to deliver them all to a safe house, so that required them to be together. There could be any number of reasons. So I wouldn't say prima facie that the fact that the 8 SIMI guys would stick together in this manner and then be caught and killed altogether necessarily means that the jailbreak itself was suspicious or phony, as some people are alleging. Meeta Khurana asks, if we were to believe that this is a fake encounter, what about Constable Yadav? How does that figure in this theory? Meeta, this is the same question that I have when I reflect on the evidence. And I think it's important or it's useful to break down, on the basis of evidence, make a sort of enlightened guess about likely scenarios. Now, based on the video and the fact that the police has been so evasive from the word go in providing questions, in providing answers to questions that people had, particularly about what weapons were recovered, where were these weapons found, who fired weapons, etc., etc. I would say that the actual act of killing these 8 men, to my mind, occurs under highly suspicious circumstances. Am I saying that the killing of these 8 was a fake encounter? I would be inclined to believe it was. But I'm defining fake encounter in a very narrow sense, that these 8 men were either already in custody or there was an excellent chance of apprehending them, and yet the police the police gave up this chance of apprehending these guys live and decided to shoot to kill. So these were essentially men who could have been captured or who were already in custody, and their killing was hence something akin to an extrajudicial execution. What I cannot say, and this is where, Meeta, your question about Yadav's killing in prison makes a lot of sense. The fact that a police constable was killed while these guys were escaping would lead me to believe that the escape itself was genuine, that these 8 guys managed to escape somehow. Of course, there a big question mark has to be put at the police and at the jail authorities in Bhopal. Bhopal jail is one of the most highly regarded prisons in terms of security in this country. The fact that 8 people could break out so easily is certainly cause for alarm, and that needs to be investigated. But I would say that you can have a perfectly consistent, you can have a fake encounter which occurs at the point of apprehension and death, simultaneously with a genuine jailbreak. I don't think that in order for the fake encounter theory to hold, one must necessarily argue that the guys who escaped jail were also part of some kind of elaborate police conspiracy. I find that a little bit far-fetched. Mohan Datta asks, what strikes me in the ongoing public discourse is how quickly public discourse devolves into terrorists deserve whatever response is meted out by the police. What role does the media play in interrupting such uncritical public discourse? I think this is a great question, Mohan, and I've been quite disturbed by a lot of the media commentary, I would say, I was actually surprised pleasantly at one level that many channels whose knee-jerk response is to buy hook, line and sinker into the police version of events were actually quite good in highlighting counterfactual points around this encounter yesterday. Right? So it was TV channels whom we regularly accuse of being mouthpieces of the police who first began airing these so-called unsubstantiated videos which punched big holes in the police version. Right? So I think the police version came under attack largely because of the media, and the media, I think, showed some courage in asking these questions, particularly at a time when the BJP has gone on the offensive and saying that any questioning of the police is to attack the morale of law enforcement. And you even had GVL Narasimha Rao and other BJP spokespersons making the ridiculous comparison between this encounter in Madhya Pradesh and what is happening along the line of control, surgical strikes, the death of an Indian soldier, the beheading of an Indian soldier, comparing the sacrifice of soldiers on the border with this kind of very, very shady encounter. I think that BJP spokespersons were doing this in order to use the card of nationalism against anybody questioning them. What they didn't realize was that they were doing a great disservice to the Indian Army and to soldiers who were actually combating threats to this country under circumstances that are really quite different from what we are being told happened in Bhopal and outside Bhopal. So I think that this idea that terrorists deserve what came their way, I think is really not on. This idea that even if I saw somebody send around a Facebook message that if the encounter was genuine, a thumbs up to the police, and if the encounter was fake, then 10 thumbs up. This kind of sick attitude where violations of the rule of law are celebrated, and the flouting of the Constitution, the flouting of the legal system of this country is hailed as something great, diminishes the republic, it diminishes Indian democracy, it diminishes all of us, quite frankly, and actually makes the if the goal of terrorist groups is to undermine the rule of law and to undermine democracy in India, then people who think and talk in this way are doing the work of these terrorists themselves. Sahit asks, do you think this is going to be an embarrassment to the BJP, or are they going to try and move public opinion against the encountered to legitimize it in the future? Well, I think it's very hard to say how this event is going to play out. We already, the BJP has hit back very strongly and has invoked the nationalism card. I think it has not worked as well as they had hoped it might. So I think the next stage of the BJP's response will be to paint these 8 SIMI accused SIMI members in the darkest of colors, to present them not as men accused of committing certain crimes and who are yet to actually be put on trial, but as bloodthirsty terrorists who in some sense have already been tried and convicted. The idea being that you then turn public opinion around. It's much like the debate over Ishrat Jahan, quite frankly, where the issue at stake is not whether Ishrat Jahan was or was not a member of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. The issue at hand is not whether an affidavit saying that she was a terrorist was changed to one which said that we don't have evidence that she was a terrorist. The issue at hand is, was her killing by the Gujarat police in the way in which the Gujarat police claimed legal or not? And that question has to be answered in relation to the circumstances of her death, and not whether she was member of this or that organization. And the same is true of these 8 SIMI guys. Their antecedents are really quite irrelevant. The police ought to have apprehended them and caught them. In fact, the question that came to my mind, because, if the escape from the police, from the jail, was indeed a genuine escape, and one, surely the police would have an incentive in trying to understand how it is that these 8 guys were able to execute this very, very daring escape. So the desire to get to the bottom of that alone should have been reason enough for you to want to keep at least 1 or 2 of the 8 alive and not simply shoot to kill. So even if assuming the encounter was genuine, I'm surprised and amazed that the Bhopal authorities, the police authorities, did not instruct their comrades to ensure that at least 1 or 2 of the escapees were taken alive. That would have helped the police get to the bottom of the prison escape, and would have helped them to secure and strengthen protocols within Bhopal jail so that this kind of an escape doesn't happen again. But we see no serious attempt by the Madhya Pradesh police or the Madhya Pradesh government to really understand how this jailbreak occurred and what lapses, if any, happened in terms of the jail protocol, in terms of the post-escape behavior by the police, and so on and so forth. Plato Paul asks, although videos are evidence, why are people finding it difficult to believe? Why attack on journalists? Are we degrading as a society? Videos are inexact evidence. They are an approximate evidence. They point us in a certain direction. But we, I think, somewhere lose sight of what is it exactly that we're talking about here. The role of a journalist and of the media is to ask questions and establish the truth of what happened. If the police makes a certain claim, it is the journalist's job to question that claim, try to gather as many facts as possible to either buttress that claim or refute it if in fact the claim is not valid, and to help readers and viewers get to the bottom of or to get to the truth of the matter. Now, I don't see why asking questions should be considered an anti-national act, but this government has been consistently following that line, and I think it's most regrettable, and unfortunately members of the public also get caught up in this kind of frenzy. The day that we will simply lie down and believe 100% of what the police claims will be a very sad day for Indian democracy. All of us in our personal lives know the manner in which the police operates and the way in which they themselves often violate the law, the way in which they function as a handmaiden of the government. So we have very good reasons why we might not want to take the police's version of a certain event at face value, but instead ask questions and try to understand and get to the bottom of the matter. So I think that the video has helped people ask questions, but at the end of the day, neither are we as the media in a position to say the encounter was fake, nor are we in a position to endorse what the police claimed. This task has to be handled according to the law of the land. And I think it is essential that there be a magisterial inquiry or some other form of independent inquiry into these fake encounters to establish the veracity or otherwise of the police's claims. And there are lots of tests, lots of interviews, questions, depositions that need to be done and done fast in order to establish the reality. For example, the police claims that the police made contradictory claims about whether the escapees had guns and whether they fired, right? The initial response of the police was that they were unarmed. Subsequently, the police said, well, we recovered country-made pistols and that there was initially firing from them. There's a very simple test that all forensic laboratories can conduct, which is to look at the residue on the hand of the 8 SIMI men. If they had fired handguns, the gunpowder would have left, and this is particularly true of country-made guns like kattas, this would have left ample residue on the hands of those who fired these weapons. And in the past, in encounters, the absence of residue on the hands of those whom the police claimed had been firing at them has helped to debunk police versions of encounters. On the other hand, the presence of gunpowder residue can help to sustain a police claim. So I think that these are simple tests and investigations that the authorities ought to do and should do quickly before evidence dissipates, so that the public can learn the truth. And I think to ask these questions and to demand that there be an impartial investigation is hardly something which should be considered an anti-national or an anti-India act in the way in which the BJP and the supporters suggest. Question from Marx P. Selvaraj. If we can shoot all under trials, why do we run a judiciary? Well, we still don't know, Marx, whether decisively whether this was simply shooting to kill as far as these under trials were concerned. The fact is that prima facie it is suspicious that these were people who the police ought to have been able to arrest or capture alive and not have killed. And the fact that they chose not to do that suggests that there is an alarming degree of impatience on the part of law enforcement towards legal procedures and, of course, towards the judiciary. They can the police may well claim that, well, what's the point of putting these guys on trial, because eventually the trial will drag on for many years and finally these guys will be found innocent. But I'm sorry, that's the law of the land. In this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. It's the job of the police to assemble evidence that will stand up to scrutiny in a court of law and prove the guilt of an accused person beyond reasonable doubt. If you can't do that, then the law of this country, the Constitution of India, does not allow you to imprison people indefinitely. It does not allow you to declare somebody a terrorist. It does not allow you to simply shoot and eliminate somebody because you suspect them to be terrorists, you suspect them to be guilty of involvement in heinous crimes. And I think that this attitude of the police, and quite frankly, if members of the public are going to endorse this kind of point of view, we need to seriously worry, because there is ample evidence of the police abusing the kind of powers that they enjoy, not just in cases of alleged terrorism, but across the board. And I dare say anybody who wants to further empower the police and remove them from the purview of questioning is asking for trouble. Gohar Fazli asks, in one of the videos, a policeman is encouraged by others to shoot at an injured man who's lying on the ground. Why is that not simple murder? Well, it is, Gohar. The simple answer to your question. If the person was alive and he was injured and he was shot dead, and this act is recorded on video, this is a case of murder. And I think it is essential, if India were a truly law-abiding society and if you had rule of law in Madhya Pradesh and in the, the government of India was concerned about this, the first thing that would have happened is that once these videos surfaced, right, the policeman involved would have immediately been suspended, taken in for questioning, and based on what emerges from that investigation, dealt with it. Maybe they have an explanation, maybe the video is fake, but the fact that the machinery of the law is not set in motion, right? I hate to compare us with the United States, where abuse of the law is rampant, and we've seen lots of instances of video recordings of the police shooting unarmed African American people. But there, the minute video evidence emerges, we don't see US media engaging in convoluted debates about whether these videos are fake or not. The fact is that these videos then become a catalyst for public anger, public demands for justice, and eventually the police are forced to act. It's a different matter that in the majority of cases they find ways to exonerate themselves, and I suspect that's what's going to happen here. But the missing link in India is that the kind of outrage that these videos should generate is simply not there. You perhaps have some members of the media fraternity, some members of the Muslim community who are getting agitated about this, but the anger that should be across the board at the fact that the police are captured on video shooting either an injured person or somebody who's already dead is something which really surprises me. And I think that we need to have more outrage, and we need to have this outrage translating into demands for justice. Otherwise, the police will carry on doing what they're doing. Abhimanyu Hazarika asks, could you elucidate on whether the discourse should be on the plight of long pending under trials rather than the alleged fake encounters of the few among them? Well, I think it's not an either or, right? I mean, the fact is that we have an inordinate number of cases that drag on for years, a large number of under trials. Some of them are in jail for periods longer than the maximum jail sentence which they might be given were they to be found guilty. This, by any yardstick, this is unconscionable. And I think that the fact that the Indian system is unable to do the right thing by under trials in a speedy manner is, it's one of the great tragedies. We've seen the Chief Justice of India lament the shortage of judges. He, of course, has blamed the executive for this, perhaps not without merit. But the fact is also that the judiciary is often party to delays itself. They allow lawyers, they cut lawyers a lot of slack when lawyers seek adjournments on one flimsy ground or the other. And at the end of the day, I would say the judiciary, the lawyers, the police, all end up creating a situation in which you have this terrible thing known as pendency in this country. So I would say that this is an issue which needs to be dealt with, but the taking of a man's life in a fake encounter or a woman's life in a fake encounter, to my mind, should not be compared to or offset against the plight of under trials. Each is a tragedy in its own way and needs to be dealt with separately. Man Dabas asks, even if it's a fake encounter, why would the Madhya Pradesh government stage this show at this point in time? Does this have anything to do with the polls in UP? No, I don't think it has, quite frankly. I don't think this is a Uttar Pradesh election-related stunt. I don't even think that this is an encounter, a fake encounter, which the Madhya Pradesh, if indeed it is fake, one which a great deal of planning has gone into. If you ask me what I believe, I'm inclined to believe the escape was genuine. The killing of the 8 men was not. And the killing of the 8 men was probably a decision taken spur of the moment by the police party or perhaps by their superiors, that now that we have these guys, might as well just finish them off. Why bother with capturing them and bringing them back to jail? And I don't think that this was necessarily a decision taken by the police on the basis of consultation with political bigwigs who were making political calculations of their own. I'd be very surprised if that were indeed the case. More likely this, which is not to say that we don't have encounters of that kind. I think the Ansal Plaza fake encounter, which happened in Delhi during the NDA government won, when Advani was the Home Minister, happened on Diwali Eve, was clearly an encounter, a fake encounter designed to spread fear and insecurity among the capital's residents, and also to show how the Delhi police is on top of the situation, how the Home Minister is on top of the situation. But lots of encounters, and I think many of the Gujarat encounters, the fake encounters, were clearly aimed at buttressing the credentials of Narendra Modi, who was Chief Minister at the time. But I don't think that this particular encounter necessarily has this kind of a political dimension. Saif Ahmed Khan asks, how do you view the media coverage of the entire episode? Is it fair to label under trials as slain terrorists / militants instead of alleged terrorists / militants? I would say the media coverage of this has been fair to, or has been good to the extent to which the media has allowed questions to be asked of the police version, right? Something which normally has not been happening. And even if you compare coverage of this particular encounter with the kind of shameless coverage we've seen, motivated coverage we've seen of Ishrat Jahan over the last 1 year, where large sections of the media have been party to the government's attempt to cover up the killing of Ishrat Jahan and to hide it in the fog of irrelevant details like first affidavit and second affidavit. In this particular case, the media has done well by asking the right questions. Of course, the labels it has attached are all wrong, and there, Saif, you're absolutely right. It is one of those unfortunate facts that the media in India tends to treat accused people as already guilty. So an under trial or a man accused of terrorism will almost invariably be called a terrorist in media narrative or media reporting, particularly once they've been killed, because there's nobody who can come back and sue you. So I think that this is one of the careless and unethical aspects of the Indian media. But I would say, insofar as TV channels showed the video and have helped to raise questions about the police's claims, to that extent, I think the media coverage of this episode has been quite good. Akhil Biswas asks, do you think if they were Hindu terrorists, their fate would have been different? I mean, BJP would have given a clean chit. Well, it's, we don't need to speculate in this particular case, because we have before us evidence from Rohini Salyan, who was the National Investigations Agency Special Prosecutor in the Malegaon blast case, and she went on the record last year saying that she was under pressure from the NIA brass to go soft on those Hindus who had been accused of planting bombs. And she also mentioned how the case against Sadhvi Pragya and others was being diluted. So I think that there is evidence that this government in particular is, I wouldn't say going out of its way, but certainly not showing any great interest in pursuing the cases of Hindutva extremists, those accused of Malegaon, those accused of the Makkah Masjid blast, and those accused of the Samjhauta train terrorist blast, in which more than 100 people were killed. And the fact that they are not doing this suggests that they are partial, which is something which is quite unfortunate. Abhinash Dash Chaudhary asks, in the last 4 days, 60 Adivasis were killed in Malkangiri, Odisha, terming them as Naxals, and now here 8 people are being killed as terrorists. Don't you think there's a huge war going on inside India and we are exterminating our own people? Same goes for universities where thinking students are being exterminated. I see multifold attacks against India. Okay, so this is, I think you're lumping too many things together, Avinash. Let's set aside the university, because you're comparing the Bhopal encounter where 8 people died and Malkangiri, where not 60, but I think the number is 36 or 29, with universities where the one death that we know for sure is the suicide, or shall we say the administrative killing, which is what the phrase the students use, of Rohit Vemula at the University of Hyderabad, and the disappearance of Najib from JNU. We don't know finally what his fate is, but I would say let's not make too sweeping a generalization. But yes, I mean, Malkangiri is a disturbing episode. The fact is that there is a civil war in this country. Maoists and the government are at war with each other in Chhattisgarh, in Odisha, in Jharkhand, parts of Andhra Pradesh, and this is a war which the government is fighting on the basis of a take no prisoners approach. And I think and quite frankly, when the Maoists have the chance to kill the CRPF, they also show no mercy, quite frankly. So when you have these encounters, you see large number of people being killed. In the one incident in Chhattisgarh, for example, more than 60 CRPF men were killed in one particular incident. So this is a very bloody war. It's a war that needs to be resolved. I wouldn't compare Malkangiri with SIMI, because SIMI is an organization that was banned more than 10 or 15 years ago. It's not clear what specific acts of violence they are associated with today. There is no standing army of SIMI. It's at best an illegal organization that is accused of being involved with acts of terror. But again, those links are not as clear-cut as one would like them to be, and this comes up every 2 years when the government has to re-argue its case for banning SIMI under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. But as far as Malkangiri, yes, there is a war going on in this country. It's a brutal war. It's a war that needs to end. And I can do no better than to echo what the Supreme Court of India said about 2 weeks ago in a hearing in the ongoing Chhattisgarh Salwajuru matter, where they pointed to the Nobel Peace Prize won by the President of Colombia for having negotiated a peace settlement between the Colombian government and the rebel group FARC. And the judges of the Supreme Court asked the Indian Attorney General that doesn't somebody in this government care about peace? If they were to negotiate or find a peaceful settlement to the Naxal issue, then there would be a peace prize in it for somebody. So I think that this is an issue which the government of India has to tackle at the political level. To think that you can win this war purely on the basis of military means to condemn your own people to a terrible, terrible fate of being caught in the crossfire, being targeted by vigilantes. We see the way in which the civil war in Chhattisgarh has gone, where innocent people have been targeted by the special police forces, auxiliary forces, and so on. This is not something which any democracy ought to encourage. I will have to stop here because we have gone slightly off topic and we've covered quite a bit of ground. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been hardly 24 hours since the news of the encounter broke. We will come back if more information is available on the details of the encounter, which either strengthens the police's claim that this was a genuine encounter or throws more questions over it. Thank you for watching.